bunch of really smart guys there discussing all these compounds are very high level. And back then, man, there were sources were abundant, very abundant, and stuff used to get through customs a lot easier. Everything was legit, human grade or veterinarian. There were no UG labs. There were no underground labs to speak of. People used to argue about what was better, human grade or vet grade. A lot of guys would refuse to use veterinarian grade stuff. They just wouldn't. Only human grade. So it's a different story. Nowadays today, right? If you're an older guy, 35, 30 something, and you get into steroids, you probably have a career, kids, a wife. You have things to do. You don't have all fucking day to sift through all this information that is out there. It's very, very hard. And because there is so much information out there, it's hard to get through it all. So here's what you need. You only need a couple of things. You don't need a lot. You need one. You need a book. You need Bill Llewellyn's Anabolics book. It's a good reference guide. It lists a lot of very important information, and it's just a good guide to have. Bill Llewellyn's book. I think if you use steroids, you should at least have one of the editions. Second, subscribe to this podcast. Make sure it automatically downloads to your phone. We're doing 2 episodes a week. You can go back pretty far on the podcast and find a lot of good information. Or if you start podcast 254 was my first episode. Is that right, Steve? I don't remember. What was my first episode?
I'm not sure. It's around there, yeah.
So around when I got on the podcast, around episode 254, 255, 256 that we started, I wanted to make it all about steroids, like just distill it down to just pure steroid information and nothing else. So subscribe to this podcast, because every week you're going to have not only this question and answer, but you're also going to have a compound that is featured that week for being discussed in depth. This week, on Thursday, we should have the podcast up for testosterone. Last Thursday, we had the podcast up for equipoise. Thursday before that, we had the podcast up for Dianabol. So get on this subscribe to this podcast, buy Bill Llewellyn's book. Make sure you register and have a membership to both evolutionary.org and Elite Fitness. And that's about it. I mean, you might want to follow Dave. I like Dave Palumbo. I like his stuff on YouTube. He's good. He covers the IFBB a lot. So he covers a lot of the bodybuilding shows. And that's something not many guys out there care about. A lot of dudes want to use steroids, want to look good, don't care about bodybuilding competitions. So you will have to, sift through some of that stuff, some of the bodybuilding coverage in order to get some really good info. But that is a good YouTube channel to follow, is Dave's. Also subscribe to Need to Build Muscle YouTube channel, n2bm.tv. So we have some good videos there. But that's about all you need, man. You need that book as a guide. You need this podcast to keep you up to date. 2 episodes a week of just distilled information. We've already done all the research for you. We're just letting you know what Steve and I know to be the most effective and safest course of action if you're already going to undertake this kind of unsafe lifestyle, I guess you could say. And a membership to the forums. So why is the membership to the forums important? The reason the membership to the forums is very important is because you can ask questions real time, live, anonymously. You can't do that on Facebook. You can't look, even if you search something on Google, you're going to be offered ads. Google is tracking what you do, what you ask it. You can go on the forums. You can go on Elite Fitness. You can go on evolutionary.org or elitefitness.com. You can search in the search engine any questions that you have. You can go on the forums anonymously, completely anonymously, ask your questions. Elite Fitness, Evolutionary is never going to chase you around Facebook and Instagram, reminding you of what you posted on the forums. It's just completely anonymous and completely disconnected from your social. So you need those 3 things, man. You need the desk reference guide. You need the podcast to listen to, and you need to be able to get on the forums and ask some questions and solve some stuff. You got those 3 things. That's a very good place to start. And that's a good way to not have to, go through a lot of stuff. You could just get right to the info you're looking for.
All right, guys. So our third one, this is a good one for especially you guys who are new to this. We get this complaint a lot. Guys start using steroids and their joints start aching. So first off, let me take this one first. I think the first thing I want to know in your situation is your history. Do you have a history of joint issues? I'd want to know, what's your physique like? What's your physical structure like? It's not a coincidence that you see guys who have like long, lanky limbs tend to complain more about their knees and their elbows than guys who have shorter limbs. Guys with shorter limbs tend to have issues with the lower legs, with the ankles maybe, with the feet, with the hands, with the wrists even. So it just depends on your physical stature. And then I'd also want to know what you're using on cycle. There is definitely a connection between what guys use and joint issues. I can say I don't have an issue with joints, but when I use Winstrol, that dried my joints a lot. And I started getting achy joints on Winstrol. So I want to know what you're using. So those factors all have, a profound effect. Other than that, you also got to look at your workouts themselves. Are you overtraining? If you do too much training of a specific joint, let's say you do tons of pull-ups one day, do 10 sets of pull-ups, and then for the next week, your elbows are hurting. Well, you probably did something to cause a little bit of a nagging injury, and your body starts spitting out inflammation to kind of repair that overtraining. So maybe you overtrained, maybe your form isn't good. If you're lifting heavy weights, if you're not using correct form, if you're doing 1 or 2 rep and maxing out on these lifts, that can affect your joint health. Your diet, that's another issue. Are you getting enough good fats in your diet? A lot of guys don't get enough good fats in their diets. If you don't get good fats, you're not lubricating your joints. And then finally, N2 Joint RX is a great supplement for joint health. That's something you definitely should be taking. If you're lifting heavy, if you're using Winstrol, if you're using most steroids like Tren, things like that, that really, really put a lot of pressure on your joints, and you're going heavy and you're going hard, then N2 Joint RX makes a big difference. If you look at the ingredients on it, it's full of excellent products, excellent supplements all in one that can help with that. So for me, when I started getting my joint problems, I started taking it and I kind of eased up on my training. I stopped the Winstrol, and then the joint problems slowly, gradually got better. But if I had kept pounding away, that problem could have been chronic. So that's something you don't want. You don't want chronic injuries by pounding away. Rick, what's your opinion on it?
Well, joint pain is tricky. Joint pain is very tricky. Now, when it comes to just bodybuilding reasons for joint pain, obviously, bad form, too much weight, bad technique, not resting enough, dropping your estrogen too low. If you overdo the anti-estrogens and you drop your estrogen too low, you'll experience some joint pain. Some of the steroids that will dry you up a little bit, like Winstrol, like Steve said, will give people a little bit of joint pain, joint discomfort. So, making sure that you're not dropping your estrogen too low, overdoing the anti-E's, just watching, keep an eye on what you're using. Those are all very valid ways to deal with it. Now, here's another thing I want everybody out there to understand as well about joint pain. Don't ignore it, because constant joint pain can be something else, something much more serious than just what you're doing in the gym or just the steroids you're taking or anti-estrogens you're taking, something way serious. Joint pain can also be a symptom for anything from cancer, even excess uric acid, which will crystallize in your joints and make everything painful. If the joint pain doesn't act like normal joint pain, you need to get out to the doctor. And what is normal joint pain? Normal joint pain, it starts to get better after a day or two. If you hurt a joint today, you worked out today, tomorrow it should be a little bit better, and then the day after it'll get better. If your joint pain or bone pain gets progressively worse or is worsening, even as maybe you lay off the gym, you got to go checked out, because joint pain can be something way more serious than anything.